energy, it leaves a wisp, right? It leaves the scent signature practically, like cooking, you know? So if you cook the same things over and over again in a house, and someone walks into that house, they're like, I kind of smell onions. I kind of like onions. Or, I kind of smell, bacon, and I'm a vegetarian. So cooking smells can be either appealing or unappealing to people. But they do linger after the cooking is done. And energy, I think the energy of the home, the people who were living in it, how it was being used, is a similar thing. It creates a lingering, smell, to use the word, to go with the analogy, but it's an energy. And some people are affiliative with it. They like it. And other people, not so much. Some people really don't want their house to sell. They really don't want to leave. And just like you can feel like the person doesn't want you to sit next to them on the bus, or, they don't want you to sit next to them on the, on the train, people can walk into a house for sale and feel like it's not being, it's not welcome. Like it isn't really for sale kind of feeling.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
And I think a lot of people are more subject to energy than they think, I believe, because we haven't really been trained to give it a name, to give it a, like, oh, this energy made me feel good, or this energy made me feel, enlivened or hopeful, or, whatever. People are just like, I don't really like it. Or, I don't know, but I liked it. And I think as people get more educated about energy, and I think that's, I agree with you. I think that a lot of these things are coming more mainline. But I think they've always been around. We just need to develop a vocabulary around them so that they're easier to discuss. Right?
That makes sense.
But the energy of a home is just so particular to all the people who've lived in it before. They've all left their heel marks on the wooden floors. And you can't always tell which people left which marks, but but those energetic signatures of a house build up and up and up. So, I love working with houses. Oh, it's, in my experience, there's not always a ghost when there's a disruptive feeling energy. There's not, I don't know, we probably talked about this before, but I'm not even sure when it comes to homes, there's good and bad energy. It's just energy. It's like a rain, right? If it floods your basement, it's a bad rain. And if it waters your garden, it's a good rain, but it's just rain, right? And I think that happens with a lot of interior spaces, houses, land. Energy runs along landlines. And so it can be going really fast in some areas, which can be very uncomfortable for some people. It can spread out and go slowly in other places and be very uncomfortable for people, so, but it's also malleable. You can direct it like water or wind, that's what feng shui is from. The idea of feng shui is that energy moves like water or wind.
Okay.
And I think it really does.
Well, I remember, I guess you were saying that, well, you're like, my husband is a broker, and when a house doesn't sell, it goes to him. I go in the house, I clear it, then the house sells.
Yes.
And in addition to this, you were saying that, sometimes there is some sort of disruptive entity. And there are a number of different techniques that you use. Sometimes you said, I was surprised by this, but you said sometimes what it requires is an actual Ghostbusters outfit. You got to come in with the You got to have fun with it. You need to appeal to the guys of the homestead.
Absolutely.
And if they can bite on it, then their intention will be, will be congruent with the cause, or, with the idea that you're trying to go with. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I think energy is all about, it starts with intention. Intention is everything. If you do a lot of things in your life without intention, you're missing out, I think, on so many possibilities for things. So if somebody is feeling like super uncomfortable about the idea that they have a ghost in their house, and therefore very inclined to, poo-poo the whole idea of a ghost, I'll show up in my Ghostbusters t-shirt with my Electrolux vacuum on my back.
That's funny.
Because, well, exactly. I don't mind, then all of a sudden somebody laughs, right? And there's fire, and there's engagement, and there's some buy-in, right? Like there's some, all right, so this lady's showing up and doing this, like, so there's this. If you, but the minute that people say, there was an energy here and it's now gone, they reinforce the energy of it being gone. So if there's a low, maybe there is years of arguments in the home that you've bought, right? And you discover that you and your partner are arguing a lot, or you and your kids are arguing a lot. And you hadn't argued before very much, but all of a sudden, you're arguing. And so you go, all right, maybe I'll get my house cleared. My job as the person who's helping match up the energy with the people is to show up in a way that the people will most buy in and become engaged in the process. So if that shows for me, showing up in my white garb, then I will. And if that shows up for me, showing up in my Ghostbuster outfit, I will, because their engagement is key. Because as long as they feel like we're still going to argue, even after this is done, then you will. The hardest energy to shift is between people's ears.
Right.
All the other energy, it's really easy. Huge things can change in an instant. But it's our human mind that has accepted a pattern that you really have to shift. And only the owner of that brain can make the shift. But if a house isn't selling for whatever reason, I can go in and I can name what I think are the energetic reasons that it's not selling. And there's stagnant chi around the front door, so it's not calling the attention, of the homeowners, or, nobody's really recognized this, but the fortune area is the laundry room and there's a gaping hole in it. And so, money's just leaking out, and this is a problem. I can identify those things, but unless I can put it in words to the homeowner that they can accept and incorporate, they won't feel the shift. They won't feel the changes.
So what if a house has been, doesn't really have an owner anymore, or owned by a bank? So you can't really interact with that homeowner anymore. You have to just work with the house itself. Like, what kind of things would you see, experience, change, shift?
Well, there's always a spirit of the home. Everything in our world and off has a spirit. It has a spark of chi. Even rocks have a spark of energy. They have a spark of life. And it's, you pick up a gray stone from your stone wall. If you hold it long enough, you will start to feel that, like, it's basic energy, that it does have a spark of life. Everything does. So a home has a spark of life as well. I call it the spirit of the home. And if you can contact the spirit of the home, you can often figure out why a place isn't selling. What is it about? A lot of houses are kind of like closing their doors and waiting for their owners to come back. Some feel just misplaced and misaligned and don't really know what they're supposed to do. Houses are like living things, and when they're neglected, when they've been foreclosed on or vacant for a while, they need a little extra special care to bring them back to life. They need a little energy, and that can be having a swarm of construction people come in and strip the paint, change out the crown molding, and refinish the floors. I mean, all of that vibrance, all of that energy reinvigorates a home when you're renovating it. And so if you're going to put a house on the market that's been empty for a while, you need to wake it up. You need to knock on the door and say, it's time to call in your new people. There's people out there who need you, who want to tread these halls, who want to, lay their heads, in your bedrooms and be rested and be safe and secure. And the house starts to feel like, okay, I can do that. I'm surprised sometimes, the feelings of betrayal from the house. What do you mean my people are gone? Like, I was looking out for these people and they're just gone, or gosh, somebody knocked a bunch of holes in my walls and then left. In construction, sometimes you run out of money and
right.
And people leave the house like it just doesn't notice. But you have to say, like, honey, we started something here and we can't finish it, but you need to call in the next owners. You need to call in. And so, when you're working with a foreclosed on or a vacant home, you need to reinvigorate it. You need to bring that life force back to it so that when people walk in, it feels alive.
So do you actually, can you, I guess it sounds like you're actually connecting with these houses. Like you can really kind of, I don't know, the house has a voice and you can connect with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, everything has a spirit. Everything, you can almost, I hate to say give it a personality because they're not like human people, but everything has a personality, and you can connect with it and talk to it. And just give it the respect that another entity just deserves.
Sounds good. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I often hear about like sage in a house.
Yes.
Go in and walk through the house and sage it, and it clears some energies.
If you have intention behind the smudging.
Okay.
If you just go wave some sage around the house, it'll smell nice.
Okay.
Which will bring, right? Yeah, that will bring some energy to it. But if you go through with the intention of saying, like, I want to release any low or ungrounded energies from this space, and I want to invite in any higher, energies for my greatest good and for the greatest good of the people who live here with me, or for the greater good of the house and people who will be living here, the difference is really measurable.
Oh. So why sage?
Sage, I think, is a very traditional plant with a very pungent aroma. Every indigenous culture cleared a house. So there were indigenous folks in Ireland who were clearing energy from their houses. And there were folks from, the Scandinavian countries and the Germanic countries and Spain and the Middle East and everywhere who clear the energy of a house. If you look through a lot of these cultures, often you get one of these pungent herbs that gets dried and burned as an energy purificant. Like they'll use sweetgrass in some places, white sage in places. A lot of times it seems to be a kind of a gray-green herb that dries and is really pungent. So they're similar, but we use sage here. I think it's an influence of the Native American community,
Okay.
who use sage, religiously. That's why sage. It doesn't have to be sage. Anything for a religious purpose, you should always really harvest it with intention and care. Lavender, rosemary. Rosemary is classic in Northern Europe as a herb of purification.
So in addition to the Ghostbusters uniform that you have, but you also know like the traditional like Vatican teaching or extraction, or is it some more traditional means of removing entities from houses? Is that what I remember you saying?
Well, I have had a variety of teachers, and usually you start off doing as you've been taught, and then as you develop skills, sometimes you start to develop your own methods and modalities. And I have been taught through a lot of Native American ceremony about moving and removing energy. And I've been taught through some more traditional traditional methods for blessing a home, for, calling blessings in on a home. But in the years that I've been doing this, I have found things that are so important, being that I understand, first of all, I'm just a conduit, and nothing is coming from me, and making sure my clients understand that it's not, if you're valuing me, you're valuing the glass over the milkshake, right? Like it's really the milkshake that you want. The glass is kind of holding it in a certain space for now. That would be my job. But,
Gotcha.
So I think that it's important to learn that. But the other thing, especially if you're dealing with ghosts and low energy, is that like attracts like. So if people are feeling angry, apprehensive, or fearful, my first job is to take that, to try to mitigate those human emotions, because those energies just gather more of those energies, which is, if I show up in my Ghostbuster t-shirt to get rid of your ghost that's been plaguing you, and you laugh at me, you've just stolen a bunch of energy from that ghost, because it can take the energy, that low energy of yours that is fear or anger, and feed on it. But it doesn't, it can get through the nut shell of laughter. Like, that is energy that starves it, and it becomes weaker. And so that's another reason to go ahead and use humor, because if it gets people out of a negative feeling state, they will attract a higher energy to them.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And if you're gonna laugh at me, I'm good with that. Like, I'm fine.
You talk about some of the more, like, any hair-raising adventures, or ghosts or spirits, or like anything that really kind of made you step back, or
my job is to not have any fear. And if I had fear of these energies, I would not do it. And I will ask any of like homeowners who are fearful of the energy that's there to step out while I'm working. Gotcha. Because some strange things can happen, and Often a ghost, will do what it does to scare a person. And what that scare does for the ghost is it gives them a whole unit of really usable energy. So they go, you go, ha, and they go, and then they get a little bigger. And you're like, ah, and they're like,
Okay.
If you can release that ghost, that spirit, to its next higher evolutionary frequency, it becomes then free. You're not nullifying that personality. You're freeing it to its next evolution. So if your house is being haunted by the ghost of grandma, and every time you open a cabinet, stuff spills out and breaks on the floor, and you think, I don't really want to get rid of this ghost because it's grandma, but you do, and then grandma's spirit transitions, and she can come back as a spirit and say, hey, I love you. But those lower ungrounded feelings that were stuck in that earth plane, because a ghost is just a spirit that does not transition to its next evolution. And so, kind of like us, they end up watching the same Netflix shows over and over again and get crabby about it. Or they lose focus. They forget. I've talked to ghosts who can't even remember why they've stayed. They've just stayed. And then they notice there's somebody new entirely in the house, and they get crabby about it because they don't know who this person is who's in their place that they've been waiting. And they say, hey, look, if I blew up a light bulb, that was pretty cool, but then they got frightened and I got a little energy, so I'm going to do that again. They lose focus. The personality fragments, the soul goes on and the personality bit is left behind. So if you can free that, you're not getting rid of grandma. You're just letting grandma go on to come back and visit you at any point that is appropriate for both of you. And you're not leaving, that fragment of stuck energy behind. It's never negation. It's always, evolution when you're releasing a ghost or any energy.
So do you hear like doors slam or creaks, or what are some of the maybe jaw-dropping events that
my first event at house clearing was my own house, and I was not very seasoned in this, and I had some fear, and I was doing a Tibetan ceremony to get rid of lower ungrounded energy, where you kind of start at the top of the house and you circle around and around, and what you're doing is you're collecting the energy as you come, and then you complete the ceremony by the front door and release the energy from the home. So when I did the collecting, by the time I was sitting in front of the door completing my ceremony, the toilets were starting to flush, the doors were slamming, the phone was ringing, anything was happening to get me to stop the completion of the ceremony. And I knew even then, you don't quit in the middle.
Okay, you got to see it through.
You have to see it through. And as, I was the only one home. No one else was I had all the toilets flushing. The phone is ringing. The door is slamming. And I just have to keep my focus, release the gathered energies, thank them and release them and bless them on to their next higher evolutionary place. And then there's peace.
So after that experience, your first experience in your own home, after that, you were like, that was pretty cool. I'm going to do this.
Oh, no.
I wouldn't imagine. I would be so far away from that place. I'd be like, I'm not doing this. I mean, I'm glad I got rid of them out of my own home, and I'm not going into anybody else's home.
No. There was a little like, for real? like that is, and so, I've been a ghost seer. Like I can see often ghosts.
That's what I was going to ask you, actually. I didn't mean to cut you off, but
Go ahead.
so how did you get into like all of this? I mean, I guess with your first home, you did your first clearing, but it sounds like you had a very particular ceremony during that first clearing. So you were pretty knee deep, maybe waist deep, maybe neck deep into all this to begin with. From what I remember, so your father, was he a rocket scientist and your mother some sort of biologist, or?
No, my dad is a nuclear physicist and my mom is a florist.
Oh, florist. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but I guess their backgrounds didn't really support your current belief system.
Not so much. No, yeah, not so much. Not so much.
At what point were you able to start seeing stuff that most other people couldn't see?
So when I was a little kid, there was this guy who used to lean on a mailbox and wave at the bus when we were little. And he was there all the time. And I finally mentioned it to my seatmate in the school bus, like, why do you think he's out there in the rain? And I was told that there was no one there. And I was like, what do you mean? He's right there. And, I learned pretty quickly that sometimes I saw things that weren't evident to other people. Because that guy was a ghost. He wasn't really there for everybody else. I did end up asking, I'm a little kid, first grader or something, and I'm asking like 4 people on the bus, hey, did you see that guy? No. I'm like, okay. I still thought he was quite real. Like he looked real to me. And he just waved at the bus. I mean, but he was out there all weather, always wearing the same thing. So, I think I started to put a lot of those things together.
Gotcha.
And just happen on I would say something and not understand. Like it was as much news to me as it was to everyone else, except for often somebody else knew what I was talking about, those little psychic hits that you start to get when you're too young to have a filter to know that you're not supposed to say, "Ooh, when's the baby coming?" No baby. And then, oh, surprise, 3 months later, guess who's having a baby? Oh, who? I think I've just always been that lucky fool. Have you ever seen the Fool from the tarot deck?
Yes.
That fellow just blithely walking off a cliff like everything is fine. That would be me. The first experience of having a house that was haunted by a real live ghost put me off a little bit. I wasn't super anxious to get all involved in that energy, because I think in general I'm an up person. I'm a positive person, and a lot of that energy hits you. It's low, it's slow, it's disorganized, and doesn't feel good in your body. And again, to choose to realize at some point, like, okay, I can do this, and so I'm meant to. How can I do it so that I'm happy about it? Like, how can I do it so that I don't get lost in the chaos that it can be? So I'm very conscious of what I'm doing and how I'm doing it.
Well, that's a pretty interesting career pick that you have there.
I like to say, yep.
Yep. So do people, are you in I was going to say yellow pages. Do you have a website?
Yeah, the woo-woo yellow pages. Haven't you seen them? They're everywhere.
Yeah.
They throw them on people's porches.
I mean, do people just reach out to you through word of mouth, or do you have a website?
Mostly people reach out to me through word of mouth. It's hard for me to sort of promote myself as if there was something special about me. If I'm a sunflower, I'm in a field of sunflowers.
Okay.
I would love to be able to help more people. And I love doing tarot. Like I do readings, and those are great. Those are fun. I think that they can be very healing. The mediumship work also can be very healing, as well as just straight up doing energy healing for a physical, mental, spiritual, or emotional, issue. But again, that's just me being like that phone operator, putting this peg into this hole and this peg into this hole so they can talk to each other.
So if you had just like a basic, and if someone said, oh, well, I believe my place has something funky in it and I'd like to rid my home of it, are there a brief certain number of steps that you would say, hey, look, do this and start with this and have the right attitude and right intention? And is there something that you could maybe pass along?
Well, if you want to clear your home, the first thing that you need to do is figure out what the energy feels like that you're not resonating with. Right? Is it a low energy? Is it a constricting energy? Like, you need to put an adjective with whatever it is that you'd like to get rid of. Maybe it's a high frenetic energy, right? Like you can't sleep and it's just, you're like,
okay.
Like it doesn't always have to be something freaky and scary. So what you need to, what I think is the best way to do is to sort of figure out what it is that you're trying to get rid of and match a tool to the energy that you're trying to release. So you'll break it up. Like if you have just a low, heavy energy, a drum is a great thing to break that energy up. And then, so you would break that energy up. You go into that space and pound your drum, like harmonize, like think, okay, what does this sound like? And it's frenetic and it's whatever. And then slowly start to change it and bring it into resonance with your heartbeat. So that you sort of use that drum to break up the energy, and then you use the drum, or you can use some other tool to harmonize that and to harmonize the energy.
Okay.
Right. So you would say like, it's a loud frenetic energy. So you could go around with a bell and just break it all up. Take a moment, and then maybe you go around with a feather to smooth it down. Right. So then you smooth, you smooth that energy. And then you have to have an intention. Like I'd like to release the energies that aren't for my greatest good. I smooth it out so that we feel better. But then you need to like bless the space. So you do, and bring into the space what you'd like to bring in, so maybe you want to bring in creativity. So that has to look like something to you or sound like something to you. So maybe it's the color orange, so you would break up the energy, you'd smooth down the energy, and then you'd put a bowl of oranges in the space and say, like, this color orange is really going to represent the energy that I'd like to fill this space up. That will feel good to me. And then every time you see the oranges for a few days, you think, okay, this is the new energy in my space. This is the new way it is. And like that kind of continues,
nice.
and you've shifted and changed the energy.
Nice.
So you can do it with, if you like to use smoke, you can use You can use smoke, like from the sage. If you like to use sound, you can use bells or drums, or, if you can use breath, you can clap a space. You can go around and clap your hands in a space, and you'll find stagnant energy that way often because the clapping sounds a little flat. So you just keep clapping your hands until it sounds crisp, and you can snap a space until it sounds crisp, and then you can go on. You can blow. You can use your breath to alter the energy in a space. And if you're doing a lot of those methods, just open a door, let it out. Open a window, let it go, and then invite nature in to replace it. Intentionally put something in there that you want in the space. So wonderful. It can just be that simple. It takes a little, like, sometimes you have to think about it. What does this look like to me? What does this feel like to me? Whatever your, if you're auditory, what does this sound like to me? If this energy that I'm feeling was a sound, what would it be? If this energy was a smell, what would it be? You can use aromatherapy then. You can change it with essences and oils if that's what, touches your heart. So when I'm working with a client, I'm trying to figure out what is this to them? What is it to them? And if there's no client, if it's an empty house, and my real estate husband would like to sell an empty house that's being owned by the bank, I need to go talk to the house and say, like, what do we have here? And this, tell me what's happened from your perspective. You become a little bit of a counselor. Okay, house, tell me what's happened from your perspective. And, this is what we, in the human world need at this point from you. Where's your buy-in? How can I convince you? How can I get you on board to help? But things are what they are, so that's what they want to be, right? So a house is there because it would like to be a house. So, what kind of family do you want to have in here? Do you want, what kind of people do you want in here? Do you want a family? Do you want a single person? What do you want? And then, like, let's call that energy in. Let's call in the energy of that family, or call in the energy of those, I want an artist here. So, like, let's call in the energy of an artist. And how do we find that? What does that look like? And call it into the space and fill it up and build the energy, and it will bloom.